What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. In today's video, of course, we're going to be talking more about the inclusion and the news of EX Shun'ei and EX Iori from KOF15 being added in with EX Volume 8. This is news that we broke and talked about yesterday in yesterday's video. If you guys did not see that, you can check it out. Link will be in the description. But in that video, I was more so able to just deliver the news, and I didn't really want to get into all the details of my thoughts on these two characters being included in the King of Fighters All-Star, because I wanted to save that for a separate topic, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I am very excited for both of these characters to be included, as most of the community is. However, I also have some things that I'm a little bit worried about, and we're going to talk about it. But before we go ahead and get into all of that more, make sure if you guys have not already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe, and let's just go ahead and talk about today's topic. So first and foremost, I figure what we'll do is we'll just take a look at the trailers for these characters from the King of Fighters 15, because typically speaking, this is going to be the best indication of what we're going to see as far as kits are concerned. I'm not going to try and make predictions on what the kits will actually be. More so, I just kind of want to make broad strokes as far as my observations here and kind of give you guys some details as to why I'm excited for both of these. But again, also some things that I am kind of worried about, or at least some talking points that are worth mentioning. So we'll start out here with, of course, the newest inclusion to the roster for King of Fighters All-Star, because this will be his first introduction to the game, and that is, of course, going to be Shun'ei. So let's just go ahead. I've got the trailer pulled up here, and we'll take a look at it. So first and foremost, you guys already know, this is a character that's love him or hate him. Some people love this character's design, other people hate this character's design, and there doesn't really just seem to be that much in between. Personally speaking, you guys know me, I am a fan of this character. I think that this character is cool. I have no issue with this character's design. I think that while he is a little bit all over the place, and he does look like a fashion store just threw up all over him and gave him everything in the kitchen sink to wear at one time, it works for me in a weird way. So while I do understand that there is a little bit of controversy on that topic, I agree it's kind of ugly, but it's one of those endearing things, right? It's always worked for me, and I've never been able to pinpoint why, even though it's a total mess. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't have the greatest fashion either. You guys can let me know in the comments, but either way, as far as Shun'ei is concerned, I've always told you guys, one of the big things that excites me about this character coming to the King of Fighters All-Star is the fact that this character is very, very interesting to look at from an animation standpoint. If you take a look at the things that go on here, in fact, I want to kind of slow this down just so you guys can kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. This character has some very, very nice looking animations with his skills. So that is something that I am very excited to see translated by the art team for the King of Fighters All-Star. The King of Fighters All-Star team has an amazing track record of improving a lot of the existing assets for these characters whenever they get introduced, and I could definitely see Shun'ei being another character to add to that list. This is a character that is very eye-catching just from a color perspective, but even outside of that, some of the particle effects and the things that you see with this character's skills are really, really interesting. And I think that what Netmarble has here, as far as an opportunity is concerned, is the opportunity to take a character that, while a lot of people kind of, like I said, love him or hate him, they have the ability to potentially maybe sway some of those people that don't like this character from an art design standpoint, because of their ability to introduce these things into the game as far as the King of Fighters All-Star is concerned, and improve upon what is already there in very subtle ways. And if you really take a look at these skills here, this is a very good example here. These color effects, these reds, these oranges, these blues, this character has a lot of style to him. And I think he brings something to the character pool in the King of Fighters All-Star that is a little bit different, right? He's bringing something that we don't necessarily see with all these other characters that drop. So I think that that is something that could be very interesting, and I could see this character being very, very interesting to people that may not have even had interest going in, just from that standpoint, because he does have a lot of things to catch the eye. Now, of course, here we do see his 3PG finisher, what we're going to assume is going to be the 3PG finisher, just based on prior history. And as you guys can see, it is very, very cool looking. And obviously it is going to probably be a nice long 3PG finisher. It's probably going to be something that we're going to be able to use on pretty much anything in the game for the most part, because I don't see this as being something that's going to be a grab or anything like that. So overall, I think that he's going to be in a good spot. You know, when it comes to the skill choices, they have a lot that they could choose from, but I think that overall, the bigger takeaway with this character, of course, is going to be things like multi-hits. He should have a decent amount of those on some of those skills, and that's always good for things such as shield shred, but you never know. The bigger question mark is always going to be whether they have dots and things like that. But obviously, with the power creep being such as it is right now, we can pretty much assume, based on the fact that this is post Soulcalibur 6, that these characters are at least going to be on the level of EX Volume 7, or probably somewhere in between EX Volume 7 and Soulcalibur 6. My assumption is that these characters are probably going to be, and it's hard to tell, this is just basically guesswork, but I'm assuming that these characters' power creep level is more than likely going to be somewhere below Soulcalibur 6's best, meaning Cassandra and Ivy and so on, but at the same time better than Nakaruru and Haomaru. That's my assumption going into this, and we'll see how right I am once we get to that point. But overall, Shun'ei is a character that, while I feel like he's a little bit misunderstood, he is also a character that I can totally understand why people might not have interest in. That, and he was the newest protagonist, and the new pro tags are always characters that are going to get a little bit of hate when it comes to the KOF community. So, you know, overall, I think that this character is probably going to be very interesting, and I do think that just from a animation perspective and aesthetic perspective, this character is probably going to be very cool, and that's why I'm very excited to see him added in, because I do think that he brings something a little bit different, and I think he's going to at least be a character that is fun to look at. So I think he'll be in a good spot. I don't really have much to worry about here, I don't believe. I think that this is probably going to be a character that he's probably going to be OP. All these characters are upon their release. It just comes down to how OP they are. I'm assuming this character is probably going to have some form of dot. That's something that they started to kind of play with more with Soulcalibur 6 again, even though we saw it kind of take a backseat to things like physical damage over the course of the past several months. I think he'll still have physical damage in his kit as well, but I do think that chances are we're going to see a repeat of what we normally see with these post-collab banners, where we're probably going to see them borrowing a lot from what we saw in the collab's kits. So if you guys take a look at some of your kits for your collab characters from the Soulcalibur 6 collaboration, chances are you're probably going to see a lot of reused abilities, details in kits, things like that, and that's typical of what Netmarble likes to do with these banners. So overall, Shun'ei, I have nothing but excitement for. I'm very happy he's being included, and you guys know I'm planning on pretty much going all in order to build him up, and hopefully RNG is not going to make me suffer as per tradition. So that is pretty much kind of my observations on Shun'ei. I have a little less reservations with him than I do with Iori. So let's talk about Iori. So Iori here, if we take a look, first and foremost, the design for Iori from KOF15 is awesome. I have no issue whatsoever with his design from KOF15. I think that while it is much different from what we've seen historically speaking, as far as his classic, just black and white outfit, I think that this newest garb really does capture the personality of this character in a big way, and I do not have any issues in that regard whatsoever. When it comes to animations, we've seen a lot of iterations of Iori, so I don't think that we can necessarily expect this character to be breaking any new ground in that regard. This is a character that is a classic character for a reason, so chances are he's going to have all the things you would expect from Iori. However, I do have some things that I'm a bit worried about. So as much as I love the animation, and you guys see it right here, we'll play it back just a little bit here. The animation for what we would assume will be his newest 3PG finisher, it looks amazing. This is a beautiful, and he is fighting Shun'ei, which is even funnier here. But this finisher, while it is gorgeous to look at, and it is really, really cool, of course you have Iori with the red eyes there and talking all kinds of smack to Shun'ei there. It's one of those situations where if you take a look at what it starts out with, and of course we don't have confirmation of anything until we get trailers, but if we take a look here, you will notice that there is a very good chance that this could end up being a grab. Now, of course, we do not know that, and that is something that we have no confirmation on whatsoever, one way or the other. But if it does end up being a grab, and I could definitely see them going that direction, just because, again, right here, you can see it starts out with what Netmarble would translate more than likely to a grab, just putting it out there, then there is a chance that it is not going to be the greatest finisher in the world for certain things. However, while that is a bit of a concern, and that is my main concern with these two characters right now, just kind of from a 1,000-yard stance of being able to look at them without knowing any details of what Netmarble has in mind, I do think that that is one thing that could potentially happen and upset some people. And of course, Iori has enormous amounts of fans out there. This isn't like Shun'ei, where this is a character that's love him or hate him, right? This is a character that is beloved by everybody pretty much that loves King of Fighters. I don't think that there's a lot of people out there that are big fans of the King of Fighters, or would tell you they're big fans of the King of Fighters and tell you they just outright hate Iori. I've never really talked to many people that have ever been that way, so I do think that this will be the more popular of the two. So that's why I think that it kind of puts a little bit more pressure on Netmarble with his release, especially considering the fact that SS Iori never really lived up to people's expectations. He was a wonderful, amazing support character, especially post-buff. But at the same time, support characters are kind of in a weird place where I would say about 75% of people don't like them or don't want to use them, and then 25% of people love using them and want to make those big numbers and post, pictures and videos of those giant numbers that they're putting up because of their supports. So it is kind of one of those situations where they do have a lot to prove to Iori's fan base at this point by giving them a character that is super top tier meta, finally. And I think he deserves that. This is a character that's never really ever been in that direction of the game where he's been kind of meta, right? He was sort of meta upon his original release with his SS version, but even then he was completely overshadowed. And so I really feel like their onus is on Netmarble with this one, because this is, chances are, the last Iori we're going to see for a very long time. So this is their last real chance to get it right? So while that is a concern for me, when it comes to the 3PG finisher that they're getting ready to release for him, and again, here it is right here in slow motion, again, a bit of a concern that it could be a grab finisher. I don't think it's as big of a deal for him, because when it comes to Iori, like I said, there's a lot of iterations of this character out there. And if we go to the actual game here, if we pull up the King of Fighters All-Star, this character already has quite a few options when it comes to finishers. So I don't really think that this character is going to be in a position where this is going to make or break him, even if it is. So while we don't have confirmation, and it could end up being that way, we do not know, it might not be, he would have other options, whereas a character like Shun'ei would not. Shun'ei would pretty much just be a slave to whatever they decide to release with this banner, and that would be it. But chances are, EX Iori would be able to use some of these past finishers. I would imagine that there would be no chance that they would lock him out of those, so this character should be okay. He should have plenty of support, and this is a character that should have plenty of support built in already, as long as he holds some of the tags that he's held prior with prior releases. There's other things that he can use that, whether they be things like stones or card sets or what have you, if he has some of these past tags that have been given to these past iterations of this character, and then the subsequent support that those tags have been given as well, then he should be fine in that regard. I don't think that that's going to be a big deal. It'll just be one of those situations where it'll give somebody, out there something else to complain about, even though it's not a huge deal because he already has other weapons out there that he can use more than likely. But that is something I'm a bit concerned about. We'll have to wait and see, of course. And then one other thing I do want to mention before I kind of wrap things up is, I know some people have pointed out, they've been like, oh, well, are they just not going to buff SS Iori? I've seen a couple of those comments on Reddit, on Discord, and on the forums, people talking about whether or not they're going to go in and buff the old Ioris or anything like that. That's not probably going to happen. I don't really see that as being something that would really have been an option anyway. When it comes to SS Iori, this character's already been buffed in the past, and even then, they don't make a habit of buffing these characters' past iterations all the time just because they're releasing a new one. So while I get the fact that people out there are really wanting to see that. At the same time, I don't think it's necessarily something you should expect, you know, and I don't think most people do, but I have seen the odd comments out there about that, and I just kind of wanted to address that briefly here at the end. I don't think that's going to happen, but overall, I do think you're in for a really good banner. It is going to be the post-collab banner. They're going to want people, despite the fact, and they know the fact that people don't have rubies right now for the most part. So they're expecting people to be broke, and they're wanting people to spend money more than likely. And that's probably part of the reason why they chose the characters they chose here, because they knew that that was going to be what was going to happen. So I do expect these characters to be very strong. They're also going to be characters that, you know, are popular amongst the fan base, at least with Iori, as far as he's concerned. But then they also have a character like Shun'ei, who, like I said, is the newest technical protagonist of the series, and is a character that, while he is kind of love him or hate him, you know that SNK really has been wanting to push. So I do think that both of these characters are going to be very good. I don't think that fans of either camp are going to have anything to really complain about, unless they completely botch it. But just looking at the kits in KOF15, I have a lot of excitement for this banner, and I'm really hoping that once we get the trailers for these characters, that they really do just kind of spike the ball with these, and they do a really good job. Because again, Iori is a character that people have been begging for an EX version of, and then Shun'ei is a character that really does deserve a really strong inclusion and presence in this game, and he's never had any presence whatsoever. So hopefully with his first iteration into the King of Fighters All-Star, they're able to pull that off for him and capture some of that magic with some of those particle effects and some of those animations that SNK has done such a great job on. But overall, you guys, that's just my opinion on this. You can let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, most of this is pretty much just reading tea leaves, but at the end of the day, I just kind of wanted to talk about the things that I'm thinking about going into this, things I'm excited about, but also the things that I do have a bit of a reservation on. And hey, we'll see whenever we get these trailers, and especially whenever this banner drops in a week, how right I was on some of this stuff, how wrong I was on some of this stuff, and just how much I had to actually worry about when it comes to any of this. But anyway, you guys, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of all this. Like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And until the next one, you all take care. Peace.
Continue.